Welcome to the RD2BE podcast. Each week we sit down with a different registered dietitian nutritionist to showcase the diversity of opportunity in the dietetics profession. Our aim is to dismantle the notion that there is a traditional career path. I'm Carl Barnes, the registered dietitian behind the scenes of RD2BE.
And I am Jenna Warnock, the RD2BE host. Our RD guests share their stories, career paths, and advice to help students like us succeed in the profession. Welcome back to another week of the RD2BE podcast. I'm your host, Jenna, and this week I'm really excited to feature a new perspective to the dietetics profession. And so, in the past we've mentioned executive directors, business owners, people who are well advanced in their field and in the dietetics career, where you're able to get, great insight from those multitude years of experience. But I'm super excited to feature a new perspective with Kaitlyn Good, who recently obtained her RD credential and has been involved with ACEND. We have multiple episodes with Dr. Abu Saba, who's the executive director, and we just recently recorded an episode with the senior director of accreditation within ACEND. And I'm just going to continue exploring all the wonderful people who've been involved with ACEND, and that includes students as well. And now that Kaitlyn is a dietitian, recently graduated, congratulations. We'll be talking about the things that she learned throughout her career, the advice that she wants to give people currently going through it, and just a really nice new fresh perspective as a new dietitian. So Kaitlyn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Happy to be a fresh perspective for all the listeners out there.
Yeah, for sure. And so, starting from the beginning, and this is still a question that I like to ask all of my guests, is how did you choose dietetics as a career path?
So, me choosing dietetics as a career path is quite the unique one. I actually was a transfer student to the dietetics major from another major. I started dietetics my sophomore year, but previously I was a music education major. In high school, my passion was always music and education. But once I got to music school, I realized that sometimes when you turn your passion into a job, you lose passion for that thing. And that's exactly what happened to me. I got burnt out and I was just absolutely done with music education. It's a great field, but it just wasn't for me. So that was one of the things, and that's how I kind of found dietetics, and that's kind of how I transferred in the first place. Something else that actually happened during that time is I actually struggled with a pretty severe eating disorder. And that ironically got me deeply interested in nutrition. I feel like a lot of people have this similar path to some extent with a lot of variation. My eating disorder started my sophomore, kind of junior year of high school, and I didn't really officially recover or excuse me now, like I guess regain my weight fully until my junior year of college, when I started my DPD professional program. And then later when I reflect on that, I do realize that a lot of my perfectionistic attitudes that I put into music actually is also reflected in my eating disorder. So that was really interesting to kind of find out about myself. So that was like one of my big ahas when I finally realized that, eating disorder was about perfection, music and practicing and being perfect, also about perfection. And so when the two were mixed together, it was just a terrible experience. So I think when I moved to dietetics, just the treatment of my eating disorder got better. A lot of complicated health issues with nutrition, like that you could easily manage with nutrition interventions, right? She had uncontrolled type 2 diabetes, chronic kidney disease that she eventually had to have dialysis for. And once I transitioned into dietetics, she would always say that, like, oh, one day, like down the road, when you get your credential, you could be my own personal dietitian and all this other stuff. And that got me like really excited, and it got me to really have a why in the back of my head as to why I chose this field and the impact I can have on people like her. Unfortunately, in my junior year, when I started my professional program, she did pass away, but that kind of spirit that she had and those words still kind of are in the back of my mind and kind of reaffirmed to me, like, yeah, I'm in a career path where I know that I have a personal connection and can make a difference. And then my dad, ironically enough, he always wanted me to be a medical doctor ever since I was a little kid. And when I think med school, I'm like, not quite, you know. I don't want to quite go the med school route. But I just kind of like found it funny, like how I reflect on it years from now and go, well, I kind of did become a doctor, Dad, you know, like not a doctor, but like in the health field with an advanced degree. Because I am the first person, I'm first gen, so the first person in my family with a bachelor's and a master's, and currently still the only person in my family with a bachelor's and master's. My brother's not too far behind. So I just found that kind of full circle and kind of cool that I landed in the right profession. And I still am really involved with music. I still play. I play saxophone. I still play in community band. And I still keep up with it. So I can have truly the best of both worlds. And it seems like now when I reflect, I did kind of land in the right profession for me. So,
Yeah, and I think what's really nice is it shows how it's not just one thing that puts people to where they end up because yes, you started out in a major that didn't feel right for you with music, and I do like how you pointed out where, if you turn a passion into work, then that passion turns into work. And then having the different familial influences as well as your own personal experience, I think that kind of give some assurance to let people know that it's yes, you have some pivotal key points in your life that lead you to the next thing, but it's the accumulation and buildup of all of these different things that put you to where you're at. So you can never truly plan everything out,
no.
but you can, as long as you have that idea and then you move forward with it, then that does help you end up to the place that, like with what you mentioned, to where you wanted to end up today. Um,
Oh, for sure. Like, I feel like almost this profession was like screaming my name inadvertently, like I didn't even know it, you know, until everything kind of started to come together and click all at once.
Mhm.
Recovered from my eating disorder around the same time my grandma passed away from all those complicated health conditions. And then my dad still being like, I really, and actually my whole family thinking, oh, you make a better living as a medical doctor. And I'm just like, I don't know about that, but it's like everything kind of clicked at once. And then now that you reflect on it, it's like, oh yeah, I kind of was slapped in the face with it the whole time. And as like I said earlier, I'm really still passionate about education and mentoring, and there's definitely room for that in dietetics. Being a
Mhm.
preceptor, being a teacher, being a professor. So I think I did kind of land in the right field to have that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Still having that education aspect all the way from the music education degree that you started with. And one thing that brought you here on the podcast was your involvement with the Academy and with Ascend. And so can you describe to us like what got you involved in the Academy, how you found out about it, and where your role within it led you?
Yeah, so I got involved with the Academy slash Ascend, because so my program director, my DPD program director, she told me like, hey, I think they were looking for a student representative elect now, and she was like, hey, I really think this fits for you. I really think that this is an amazing opportunity. Combined also personally, I have like I already said, like a passion for education, improving processes, working together. How about we say working together? Working together as a team to solve like bigger issues, bigger systemic problems, really thinking big picture. And that's kind of what we do at Ascend. And we have these higher level thinking discussions to improve processes and things like that. When I first applied to the Ascend board, to be quite honest with you, I didn't think I was going to get it because you think of that as this super competitive thing, right? Like, oh, this is like a position on the national academy level. But so it was more at first like, oh, sure, why not? Like, I'm gonna regret it if I don't apply for it, so I might as well apply for it, right? I had no idea I would actually be chosen for it, to be quite honest with you. When I was reading, like, I had never traveled before, actually via plane, until I had my first Chicago board meeting. So I read the description of the position. I was like, oh my gosh, I can get on a plane for the first time and go to Chicago. Like that's sick. So that's actually what got me really like the travel opportunity really got me. Plus like, oh, if I do get chosen, like seems like my bread and butter, right? So I feel like when you're a student, you sometimes think you're like the last person that can make an impact, but I think in reality, you're like the first person that can most easily make an impact. And since I'm like really passionate about giving back to things that I benefited from, so like I obviously benefited from the education system that ACEND put in place, really strong dietetics programs accredited by ACEND. So I just this was just an opportunity for me to give back and to serve the board that puts all these processes into place that I have benefited from, and just make things better. Especially on the ACEND board too, I feel like the students' perspective is the most valued perspective because every decision that ACEND makes trickles down somehow, some way to the student, either very directly or indirectly. So as I've evolved to get on the ACEND board, what started with like, I don't even know if I'm gonna get this thing to like, I'm all in, I'm all involved. I definitely do not regret applying for it, and I definitely like have appreciated and loved every moment I get to serve on the board and to, like I said earlier, give back to a system that served me very well.
Yeah, and it sounds like having that great motivation similarly to your grandmother and her condition and that kind of keeping you going to becoming a dietitian. And I mean, there's so many great things I think for getting involved with an organization, especially like the Academy or Ascend. And I say Academy or because we always like to have the distinction that they're two separate entities. And I think that's a great example of also sharing your insight of not thinking that you would get it, but then just saying why not? Because I mean, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't make. And I think also it's the investing your energy where you're passionate with it. Because I think also a lot of like dietetic students are very much like, and this is a compliment, we're overachievers. We like to
Mhm.
put 110% in everything and do everything all at the same time. But I think you have that good nuanced approach where you were passionate about education, you were passionate about improving these systems, and getting involved with Ascend was that like perfect fit. And so you like kind of sunk into something that you were genuinely interested in and not just applying like willy-nilly for something. You like read into it, looked at it, and was like, yes, this is exactly what I'm interested in. Instead of like, applying to a random thing. Like you're more likely to get involved or accepted for something if it is truly something that you're interested in because they'll see that and they probably definitely saw that with you.
Yeah, that's actually my biggest piece of advice to any student wanting to either get involved with the academy. We're looking for a new student representative right now. So yes, Ascend and either or their state affiliate or like their district affiliate or any kind of organization, professional organization where you're giving back essentially. And you're serving on a board or with a greater group of people, like if the opportunity presents itself, like you said, and I can and I don't know that quote from Wayne from Gretzky. I know it from The Office. So I was like, oh, somebody watches The Office. Um, so, but I mean, you if you're passionate about it, you have to take the opportunity. Like how like the perfect example, like I was passionate about education, giving back to the education system, and I just went for it, and this is what happened. So this kind of applies across the board to like any kind of individual scenario for students. Don't think that you are the person with just because you're the person with the least experience doesn't mean you don't have as much or if more to give
Hmm.
than someone with more experience, right? And
Hmm.
that's the Ascend board's a perfect example of that too. Like the students are very heavily weighed, their opinions and what they have to share is very heavily weighed. And we don't even like my last Ascend, and I think my last Ascend board meeting, I wasn't even an RD. I think I was just my MS. But prior to that, I didn't even have an MS. And then all these people were around here, the Ascend staff, and then the educators, they had their PhDs and they were like listening to me. And they thought that I had just as much to give as they did, even though they're clearly more experienced, they clearly have more education, and they're clearly more immersed like in the education and teaching part of it. But yeah, that's just my biggest piece of advice. Even if you think that you don't have any experience or anything to offer just because you're a student, that's wrong because you definitely have a lot to offer. Experience doesn't mean as much as what students think it does, you know. And being involved in these organizations is how you get experience too, is the caveat to that as well.
Exactly. And I think that's a great segue into, and I love what you said where you can't expect students to have all the experience and then be like, well, then what do you have to bring to the table? You do have that student perspective, which is super important. And I'm glad that you mentioned, yeah, getting involved as a student is the way that you gain that experience that then, helps you grow to being a really good, successful dietitian. And so, do you have any for students who are actively, pursuing that RD credential? Where would you point them in the direction of being able to make an impact? Like, where would you point them to go if they did want to get involved and to start getting that experience as a student?
Personally, I started when I wanted to get really involved as a student. I started with my own. If your school has like a dietetics organization, um, quickly hop on that train and try to get some kind of leadership experience from that. I think my university had like a JMU dietetics organization, right? And then start to kind of get involved from there. Something I personally did is sometimes also, I know it might be scary sometimes for students, but being proactive about reaching out to their mentors, their professors, and saying, hey, I really want to get involved. Because more likely than not, your professors and your mentors are involved in a lot of things that you could also be involved in. I know specifically for me, for my district affiliate and my state affiliate in VAND, I just directly reached out to the professors that were involved with that and was like, "Hey, is there like can I help in any way in this?" And because it's major points as a student. It's a win-win. They receive help, and then you receive this experience, this networking and relationship building with people that are already in the profession, and your name is out there. I know I don't part of me is like, oh, if you just do something for your name to be out there, it's not legit. No, it is legit. Like you have to, in this field especially, it's such a small field that if you put your name out there, somebody more likely than not, somebody's gonna know it. Especially in like smaller state affiliates or district organizations. And that serves you well in your career for growth years down the line, or when you're about to graduate and you're looking for a job or you're looking for other opportunities, things like that. So that's how I went about it. More likely than not, if you're a student and your professors and mentors, they're likely involved in some form or fashion in like these like either state affiliate or district affiliate organizations. Um, or they can easily direct you towards places where you can get involved. And then if it interests you, like I said, if it really interests you, then you just take that opportunity and you go all in 100%. And so that's kind of like what I did with Ascend.
Yeah, awesome. And when it comes to advice about taking advantage of these opportunities, do you have any, like, say that someone's never reached out to like a district affiliate before, or no one, or the student hasn't like really done any sort of like emailing or contact, do you have specific resources or where did you start? I think is a good question to ask.
Yeah, I started, like I said, I started with my mentors and professors at my university to get me connected. That's the one of the easiest ways that students can have an outlet. Um, and they can help. I'm sure they're able to guide or mentor you to reach out, or they can directly connect you and say, hey, I have this student that wants to do XYZ or wants to just get involved. Is there maybe like a something they can do, a position they can do? Like a lot of state affiliates and district affiliates have like student representative positions. So those are most like so they're usually pretty hard to fill. So if a student is actually willing to do and volunteer to be in that role, your chances of getting that role are pretty high. But that's where I started. And if a student is having trouble maybe reaching out, or just really like more reserved and timid, just think about, just sit back and think about the opportunity cost versus just not doing it versus doing it. And that opportunity cost is huge when you think about this could be your gateway to like building professional network, getting involved, putting your name up there and forming these relationships and collaborating and all these and networking and things like that. Because I think it helps us say, I also am a little bit on the more reserved side. And I used to be kind of timid and more on the reserve side as well. And there was a lot of times where, I wanted to get involved or say something, but I didn't. And then one day I just thought to myself, like, I'm not gonna get anywhere unless I'm more proactive and I'm more so on the proactive and reaching out to my mentors, my professors, and things like that. So I too was in that kind of same boat because at one point I wasn't really involved in anything either. I was just kind of, wanting to, but a little bit timid and reserved too. So that's where you start.
Absolutely. And I think you made a great like differentiation between you can be proactive and not outspoken. Like you can be proactive and still take charge, but not be like the most extroverted, outgoing person in the room. Because I very much agree where I started out super, super introverted, but until you send that first email, you know, a million doors can open up just from the send of one email, but you don't know until you try. And I think a common thing that students may run into is that if you start being proactive and if you start reaching out, you then get like an abundance of opportunities your way, almost to the point of having to choose and then like having to learn to say no. And I feel like a lot of students run into getting like overwhelmed all at once of like, oh, I want to do all the things. And but then it's like you're a student, you have work, but then you want to get this volunteer and leadership experience. And so, do you have any recommendations towards students about balancing all of those things and like figuring it all out while in school?
Oh, absolutely, because that was honestly my exact same timeline. That was honestly the story of my life. So once you start being proactive and reaching out, and then also once people realize as a student that, hey, you're a good help, right? Like most of the time they're gonna realize if a student reaches out, like, oh, hey, this person's really like you stand out, right? And then so they get you to do a lot of things, right? But this kind of like is something that I've struggled with too, is saying no. But you know, one key component, to balancing everything is you just can't take on more than you can personally fulfill. We each as an individual have different capacities and different limitations, and that's like okay. And depending on what stage of life you're in, also just within school, within your personal life, within your if you work also on the side, that's a whole nother thing. It is okay, I know that society, and I'm happy to see more and more people are working towards this kind of thing of like you don't have to give 110%, and you don't have to do everything to be a meaningful contribution. You really don't. And I really struggled with this too. Like I struggled with being involved in so much and then losing that beyond what I personally thought I could handle, because I thought to myself, if I say no, that's going to show people that I can't tackle this and I can't tackle that. And that's going to show people that I can't handle this, I can't handle that. But no, like I just recently also, this conversation is so perfectly timed because I also just realized just literally a month ago, just like not far into my professional career now that I'm balancing a job and still volunteering and still being involved in these things, that there comes to a point where you have to say no, and you can't worry about so and so is going to think I can't handle this, blah blah blah. You don't need a reason to say no. You just to tell yourself that I personally at this point in my life right now, trying to balance a new job, trying to balance living in a new location. I recently just moved from Harrisonburg to Northern Virginia. And then also still trying to upkeep like being on the ACEND board, being involved with I'm involved with my public policy and my state affiliate and things like that. I just recently found out that like there are some things that you just have to, and you don't have to even explain yourself either. You just have to know, hey, I can't do that right now. Um, maybe later, always still keep the opportunity open for later, but we're all kind of fluid. The opportunities that come to us might be a lot, but our capacity at the time might be running pretty thin. So that's currently what I'm trying to do right now as well. And I just learned this and I just realized and it just clicked in my head that I don't have to do everything to have a strong work ethic and I don't have to do everything to be involved and to have contributions and to make myself feel like I'm still in it.
Exactly. And I think those are such great points to make because even with like certain guests I've had on the podcast where they are like the interviewers to the interviewees, they've said, well, we'd much rather have someone involved in 1 to 3 things where they're like sinking their teeth in it, fully committed, drilling in, than say that they're part of, 6, 7 different organizations, but they're just members and then they, attend a meeting once a month, but they aren't able to actually get much from it. And I think you also brought up a great point about us not like degrading ourselves because we're not doing all of these things, where you're just as valuable as a person and as an employee, as a student, or as a volunteer if it's just one thing that you're doing versus if you're doing all those 10 things and really putting yourself first. Because, yeah, if you spread yourself too thin, then you're not going to have anything to give in these organizations that you're part of. So then it's kind of a lose-lose instead of that win-win situation. Um, and I'm glad that even with you, like you sharing what you're currently going through as a professional, where it doesn't stop in school. Like it's great to focus on knowing when to say no, knowing how to balance everything when you're in school because you'll just keep getting those things presented to you even after you graduate. So, I think it's great how you're in that sort of like crux of, you just kind of got over this certain experience of having to learn how to say no and then how it's directly applying to your practice as a dietitian now.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually like that's another one of my biggest pieces of advice. Please, to all the students and that are listening, the RD2Bs, like please like learn this sooner. Like please, like before you graduate, learn to say no. Like learn to say no. You will thank yourself later for it. You will thank yourself later because that learning to say no now will get you set up to say no at your job will get you to set up to say, no, I can't do that right now to other people in your life that are demanding of you, right? So the sooner you learn it, don't be like me and just now learning it,
Mhm.
you know? So that's the another big piece of advice I would give.
Yeah, and everyone has their like right place and time for learning these lessons. And I think maybe something that some people may be apprehensive about is, well, what if me saying no to this one thing is me declining like this awesome opportunity? Well, if you sit like similarly to the feeling that you had, like that passion that you had applying for that ASCEND
Mhm.
student rep position, if you're applying for something or if you get an acceptance for something and it doesn't light you up with joy or with excitement, then you kind of know that it won't be really worth your time in investing, especially if it's supplemental. Now, if you need a job to pay the bills, that's a different story. Like if you have classes that you need to go to, that's a different story. But when it comes to wanting to build up your resume, building up your extracurriculars, if you're applying to all these different positions and only 1 out of the 10 are really lighting a fire in your eye, then do you really need those 9 other opportunities that you could have gotten accepted for in your life for you to still get the benefit that that one could give you? So
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need those other nine. You really don't. Coming from someone that was once like that and thinking you needed those other nine, you don't need those other nine.
mhm.
And I want, yeah, that's a big clarification. Yeah, like don't always say no. If you're required to be at work, you can't exactly say no to that. But you can say no to like additional responsibilities offered if you feel maxed out at your job, right? And you get that feel, right? Um, And yeah, of course, if you have classes to go to, you can't just say no to classes. But, like you said, you can control what you do outside. And yeah, like going back to what I said, if something really doesn't compel you with a like compel you towards it, like me with Ascend, like I would debate it in my head a little bit, right? Like that's something I would debate in my head. Do I really want to do this if I'm not eager to move forward with it? Like I get excited every time I go to Chicago. I'm a very excited person. I get excited every time I go to Chicago for an Ascend board meeting. I get excited for all of our meetings on Zoom. I get excited talking about things like with education. So that's how I knew that like, okay, I could hit a home run with this one, but the other things, I don't know. Like, I could let the other things go if it got too much.
Yeah, no, and that's great insight that you shared, and I'm sure people listening in will be able to get maybe the reassurance that they need for maybe they're on the fence of choosing between one thing or the other.
Mm.
Like you don't have to do both. And another thing too is you can have it all, just not all at once. That's another thing where it's like you don't have to do all those 10 things all while you're a student. It can be certain things that you focus on as a student, but then do when you're in your professional career. So yeah, I think all of these are really great points about just balancing the intensities of being a student and not putting too much pressure on ourselves. And one thing that I wanted to ask a little bit more about was with your educational career, where there are certain pivotal points that people do experience, where you mentioned like the different pivotal points that kind of led you to pursuing dietetics. Well, when you were actually in, school, getting your DPD in grad school, do you have certain moments that you wouldn't mind sharing that kind of really helped shape you to where you were becoming a dietitian, and then who kind of helped you along the way? Just kind of sharing um, those really transformative moments and the people who may have been with you during those.
Yeah, like when I talk about pivotal moments, especially in grad school, I feel like DPD was so long ago. Like, I mean, I guess graduating from my DPD was pretty pivotal. But grad school, I feel like is where most of the moments really happened and where most of them, I think for most people, where you're in grad school and there's a little bit more flexibility, you have the research component, I feel like that's where a lot of my pivotal moments happen. And you have the internship as well. Um, so pivotal moment, was graduate school overall, changed my outlook and like the what excuse me, and I feel like those 2 years were really transformative for me just in general. But three I can think off the top of my head is my graduate school. JMU requires you to present like a capstone slash thesis and defend it. And in the back of my head when like I started my program, and I just want to also come out and say like I'm not the most like articulate public speaker. Like I love to talk to other people, and I love having conversations like this right now. But when you put me in, especially like a defense pressure situation, like sometimes I start talking and I don't know what I'm saying. So I actually have to prepare for those kinds of, I feel like everyone does to an extent, but I guess I'm trying to say for me to be able to public speak in that manner, I have to extensively prepare. I just can't go up there off my whim and like start talking because then I don't know what I'm talking about. I know a lot of people that can do that, and I'm like, how do you just do that? You know? So my capstone research advisor and mentor, Dr. Hess, she did a fantastic job in mentoring me and advising me throughout the whole process. I did qualitative research with like interviews and coding and things like that. And I never did that process before. So she did a really good job of walking me through from start to finish and then also just coaching me on like presentations. Like we practiced our presentations and we walked through like how do you present something, how do you present research like this. And she just overall is a human, a professor, a mentor, and now like good friend of mine. Like she just really like gave me just not even knowing it, like, but just simultaneously like this booster of confidence, not just with my presentation and my defense or anything, but just like overall. She just had that aura about her that like just made me like be a more confident person. And I think we all need more professors like that. Just like, owning it. She made me like really feel like I could own anything, and inadvertently. She never like instructed me to own things more. You know what I'm saying? Like she just had that aura about her. And so that was one of the people that helped me out there. I think another pivotal moment is when I did my clinical internship, part of my clinical internship at a long-term care facility. And now my placement at this long-term care facility was completely not planned and by chance. At the beginning of grad school, this placement was not planned for me. And that's like long-term care. I currently work in long-term care. And that's where I really wanted to go into, and that's the population I wanted to work into. But really the only thing that was available at the time at the beginning of grad school was like all acute care hospitals. But at the very last minute in grad school, I got to do a month of long-term care with a really, really amazing preceptor that really taught me important lesson skills I still use today, as a dietitian. This wasn't a part of the plan, but I feel like nothing really could have ended up better because now working in long-term care, I use the same EMR system as I do with this job. I do all the same things. It was my last month of grad school and I got my job in June. So like May to June, like I literally just like continued on, I guess, from where I finished from my internship. And I really like thought that, even though it was unplanned, I really like I that worked out so well. And having an amazing preceptor that really mentored me and really took the time for those 4 weeks to really show me and make me confident enough to step into a facility like I do every day and to just be a dietitian. So that worked out so seamlessly, and like I look back on it and go, wow, like that was the most one of the unplanned blessings I've ever had. Because I didn't really want to go into acute care. So I'm like, well, now I'm just gonna go, I guess, find it. And also I got this job because of my experience in long-term care. It's not typical that they hire someone without experience because a lot of people after grad school do go in those acute care settings. And let me just tell you, like acute care is not for me. Like it's really not. Like the ICU is so rough for me. And we have wounds in long-term care, but we don't have like, I guess like burns, like more extensive, which I don't know, but like long story short, I think everyone can understand that just those that like also don't do acute care can understand. Like I just was not thrilled about it. So that was another one. And lastly, like another pivotal moment, which again happened in grad school and I keep talking about, that was when I joined the ACEND board and got accepted on the ACEND board. Like I said, what stuck out to me originally was like, oh, I get to ride a plane. I get to go an hour and a half on a plane to Chicago and back. Like I've never did that before. I come from a very like rural slash country background. I grew up on a farm. I'm like, whoa, a plane that flies. I get to go, and see the world. And so that's what really got my first attention onto it. But I have to really give a shout out to my DPD program director, Jennifer Walsh, for doing that, for getting me like introduced to applying for the Ascend board. Um, you know, she really like presented the opportunity for me, and I will say like, and I'm gonna disclose this, it was 2 days before the deadline before the application. She saw this email and she was like, I totally understand it's 2 days before November 1st. And you have to write a cover letter, you have to refinish your resume, and you got to have a letter of recommendation in 2 days. I totally understand, but I really think, and she saw that in me, she saw that passion for education, she saw that person that wanted that would be great in this role, wanting a leadership position. She saw that in me that I didn't see, because obviously I told you earlier, I was like, sure, like let's do this thing. But she really presented it to me because she saw a lot in me and a lot of potential. Um, and shout out to her. She was like, and I'll even review everything before you click submit. So she was there with me on Wednesday and reviewed all of my things for me, my resume, my cover letter. And shout out to my clinical professor, Dr. Bob Jorge, for writing my letter of recommendation. Also, so last minute. So this all really just happened the last minute. But I really do have to give a shout out to Jennifer. She's truly been like the person that has seen the most in me and did see the most in me in undergrad, in the DPD program, and also continuing into grad school. Definitely my biggest advocate with facing challenges in grad school. And she really taught me how to be my best advocate and to like really see within myself that I had the greatest potential and I could really do these amazing things. She taught me a lot more about what you learn inside the classroom. A lot of what she also taught me was a lot of outside of the classroom things. And so that's always someone that'll have a special place in my heart. So, but yeah, I mean, those are my few shout outs. I mean, they definitely deserve it because like I said, a lot of the pivotal moments I had happened in grad school, and then the most pivotal moment happened 2 days before the deadline. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think and the reason why I asked the question pairing like what were the most pivotal moments paired with who helped you along the way, I mean it's no coincidence that those pivotal moments typically had a person or a mentor associated with it. And I think that just goes to show that you're not only is it really difficult to do everything on your own, but you shouldn't do everything on your own because then that'll keep your opportunities pretty limited and really having someone in your corner, even if it's one person, that one person can be that domino that, once you kind of form a relationship with them, then they pair you off to the next person to be like, oh, I think they would really help you with this because even with just starting with your DPD director who knows you in the classroom setting, it just builds from there and being open to that. So I think, yeah, just a really great key takeaway to all of these pivotal moments is not only that you can almost never do it alone, but also most of the most pivotal moments come when you least expect it. And it's like leaning into that where, it's totally fine and actually preferred, I think, to not have your entire career planned out because then that just kind of gives you tunnel vision. And
yeah.
excuse me, you may be losing opportunities because you just didn't think about it at all before. And typically those opportunities are even better than what you could have imagined.
Yeah, the long-term care thing was not planned. The long-term care rotation was not planned. Now work in long-term care in a field in a population I want to. And yeah, I mean that's how I would describe Jennifer, she was like the pivotal person that started the domino effect. And I still continue to tell her to this day, I'm like, I wouldn't do this stuff if I would not have been on the Ascend board if you had not pulled up this thing and told me, I think you'd be really good. I think you'd be a really good fit for this. I see this potential in you. I think you could go far with this. So yeah, I wouldn't even be on the Ascend board if it wasn't for those, if it wasn't for her, honestly, because I would have never seen that. I
Yeah.
would have never looked on the Ascend website saying, oh, we're looking for the student rep. The application due this time. I would have never seen that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. With having all these different people in your corner and really not tailoring or taking advantage of in a bad way, but just taking advantage of the opportunities that they may present to you because those most commonly, like with what you mentioned with long-term care, totally not on your radar, but now that's a career that you're paving for yourself because of these people helping
Mhm.
you along the way. And so, along with these pivotal moments, I'm sure they were difficult in and of themselves. Like, I also am not a great public speaker, and it also was very stressful, and I need to practice, and it will always be uncomfortable for me. But aside from those types of experiences that were definitely difficult, do you have like any thing from your past educational journey that you would kind of label as one of the hardest things you had to learn in school or one of the hardest things you had to overcome? Just to share that experience.
Just overall, like something that I feel like I like going back off of learning how to be your best advocate. I think that's one of the most valuable things I learned. I'm kind of learning how to like be comfortable in your own skin and to realize and to be your best advocate for yourself and to make allies and connections. To have people help you in that journey. Because you know I feel like a lot of students can relate to like struggling in a specific class, maybe not like jiving well or like having a rough time transitioning to like maybe an internship site or an SEL site, or maybe having something happen in your personal life in combination with all these three things or like all of the above. Because you just have to, the thing I learned is you have when you're faced with either one, two, three, or all those things combined, is the power that you have is to communicate to your allies, your connections, what's going on. So maybe like so you can have help, so you can have support. Um I actually had a combination of all of the vulnerable share had a combination of all those struggles happening at one point during grad school as well. So I had these really high points during grad school, right? But then also there comes like some low points during grad school as well. And I feel like during school overall, and I feel like a lot of students can relate to that. And I remember just feeling super overwhelmed, like struggling to pay attention in class. I was struggling kind of to get acclimated to my internship site in acute care. And I was overwhelmed to the point of burnout. And I felt a lot of negative things about myself because I'm like, oh, come on, I should be able to do this. I like, like you kind of like start to have those negative feelings and talk bad about yourself. But I did learn like, being the best advocate for yourself when things are going wrong is to communicate and reach out to others. Like you said earlier, you can't do anything and you can't do everything alone. So I guess learning how to communicate with others and learning how to communicate, these things are happening, they're making me feel this way.
Mhm.
Do we have a solution or do we have like an alternate solution? And if someone isn't receptive, don't feel, just a side note, if someone's not receptive to those things, don't feel bad about following up or don't feel bad about, hey, I need this for myself. Please don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, and I think that that's the biggest thing I learned in school. And it's not an easy thing to talk about. Like your low points are not an easy thing to talk about, or, especially during grad school, but everyone has them. And I feel like the common denominator is communication, support, having allies, having connections. Because like we were talking about earlier, you can't do everything alone. You really can't. We're all in this together. So that's like one of the biggest things I learned in grad school was, you're not a pain in someone's side if you're advocating for yourself. You
Absolutely.
know. hmm
Yeah, and it's that kind of asking for help when you know that you need help, saying no when you know you should be saying no, um, applying for a position that you know really speaks to your passions and advocating your past experience up for that position. And I just finished talking about this with someone with Ascend where, when you're submitting your diecast application and people get a little apprehensive, bragging about themselves in quotes, about their experiences, but it's like, no, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing, which is showing and advocating all these awesome things that you've done in order to get that recognition, aka the acceptance into the program that you deserve. Um, and I really like how what we've been talking about is a lot of the ways to make the most out of your dietetics journey while also protecting yourself in the process and not getting overwhelmed, because I think that's just a really important caveat that I think a lot of us need to hear, where we like to go all in, but sometimes too hard too fast. And I think these types of reminders are really good and important for making sure that, the next step is getting that RD credential, but I think you're a great example of, well, that's not the final chapter. You just completely start this new chapter and you don't want to be burnt to oblivion from doing all these things before you even become the dietitian that you've been training to be.
Yeah, like you never like one of the most pivotal things I learned is like kind of what we've been building off of is you never really like in life in your career, you never really arrive anywhere. Like I know sometimes like we have benchmarks and we have checkpoints that we arrive to, but like we keep talking about, it doesn't stop there. You don't arrive and stay.
Mhm.
You're always going to the next thing. Now, the speed in which you go to that next thing, like the progression in which you go to that next thing, that's totally individual.
Mhm.
But you never like really like truly arrive. You never stop. you
Yeah.
know. So putting as many things in place as possible that you can to make that more manageable, because I know it sounds ominous and intimidating when it's like you never stop. The grind never stops. So putting things in place as much as possible, like boundaries, healthy like healthy ways to balance your life, like we've been talking about, putting as much of those things in place as possible makes it so much more manageable.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
yeah, because it takes away from the once I get to this, then I can feel relaxed, or once I get to this, once I get to that, then I can give myself space to breathe. It's that like blunt reality of you'll that it's not blunt and sad in the sense of it'll never happen. It's mainly using that statement as the reassurance of start taking care of yourself now because you don't have to wait to take care of yourself. You can start taking care of yourself today.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was about to piggyback off of what you just said. And when people like, oh, once I get this done, I can relax. How about you just like relax a little bit every day? Like that's okay. Like take your weekends to recharge and relax. Take your evenings to recharge and relax. Like take some moments out of your workday. I take moments out of my workday, like 10 to 15 minutes just to shut the door, turn the lights off, and just like maybe scream. I don't know. But like just chill out. Like you can do that. You can even space it out over the course of your day. Like you don't have to wait until the workday's over to like, you know, I guess like relax. You can like have these things implemented in your day in short spurts.
Absolutely. And like
Most
giving your
successful.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself those breathers because yeah, it doesn't have to be an end of the day thing. And I think this ties nicely to just any other advice you have for RD2Bs to take care of themselves while they're in school because I think we've really like dovetailed really nicely into this part of the conversation. But any other things that you've learned in your dietetic internship and your extracurriculars about ways to take care of yourself while doing all those things.
Yeah, so that amazing LTC rotation I was talking about earlier, my preceptor, Lemma Brown actually was like the one that taught me, this thing, and it changed my life. It was so pivotal. This is one of the reasons that my long-term care rotation was so pivotal because she taught me about like the 100% rule that she has for herself. And I'm really excited to share this. So it's like because I never thought about it this way before. So each day you have 100%. You think if you have, she explained this to me, you have 100% of you. And she was like, most people tend to think that all of that needs to go towards either their 8-hour workday. Yeah, a lot of people think that the majority of it has to go towards their 8-hour workday because people treat work sometimes like, oh, I have to go to work today. It's like it's the only thing in their day, right? But she's like, no, like, what are you doing? Like, you definitely have other things that you can do today outside of your workday that make up that 100% of yourself, like at most you should be giving 33% of yourself to your job. That's only 8 hours. She was like, you have 66% left. If you dedicate 33% of yourself to your job, this other 33%, ideally, we want to sleep, right? But she was like, the other 33%, she's like, you need to, because that's just as much as you have dedicated to your job, right? Theoretically. So she's like, make the most of it and like relax or like have a solid morning routine in place. One thing I do every morning is I run for 30 minutes in the morning. Like I have a good exercise routine. I have a good like self-care routine, like getting ready, get ready with me routine, like as like the TikTokers would say. Like I have a really good routine in the morning in place for those 4 hours, and then at night I have a really good routine for the rest of my night. So I really have that solidified in place. So like when I leave here, like I'm at work right now, like when I leave here, I know that I have like 4 to 5 good hours left to enjoy myself. I don't dedicate my whole energy, 100% of my energy towards this place. Like and that's how you get burnt out
Hmm.
if you do that, another thing she taught me is like if something doesn't get done, is it really the end of the world? Like, is it really the end of the world? You know? Most of the time, it's really not. And it can wait till the next day. In long-term care, we're not acute care. It can definitely wait till the next day. But, you know, you can't you can't overextend your stay at work is what I'm trying to also say is like and even like this goes for school too, to replace work with school. 8 hours of school theoretically maybe, or like at an internship. Have those same things in place for yourself, wake up on a Tuesday and say, oh, I have work today, but I also have these other things that I'm doing too. You know, I have 66% of the rest of my day to live and choose. So when you think about it, your work day or like maybe your school is only worth 33%. You ideally have, most of the day still to yourself. It's just I don't like to say, oh, people choose this and that, but it's what you choose to make of your day. It's and what the boundaries you choose to have, and you can easily make the choice to just. And it's not about. And a lot of people, I think, synonymously would hear what I'm saying and go, "Oh, you're just not caring at work, or you're just like not. You're not putting 100% in at work, or you have like a poor work ethic." Or whatever. No, it's not. It's literally like just the allocation of time I have. Now, when I'm at work. Of course, like it's focused, it's 100%. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm not slacking. I think most people, when they hear what I just said about only giving 33% of themselves to work, would say, "Oh, well, you must not work hard." No, that's like the differentiation. Like when you're here, yes, you you give all your that 33% is a lot, right? So you're all in at work. But then, in that latter half, when you leave this place, don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You enter a new world when you leave this place almost. So that's my 2 cents. And that's like one of one of the other bigger pieces of advice. And I thought it was a really nice way to put it.
Absolutely.
I loved it that she spelled it out for me in that way. It really like as a new grad, and starting my first job, it really like opened me up a lot. And it really like I think about that every single day. And like if I wouldn't have heard this, I would have probably I don't know. I needed to hear that before starting in my first job.
Yeah. And I think it's because I think that's so important because in school, you go to class and then you take homework home with you.
Mhm.
Like you go to class and that's not it. Like we are ingrained in our head. Like it's not just what you do in the classroom, it's also what you have to do for class outside the classroom. And so if
Mhm.
you don't have someone directly telling us when you're at work, you 100% do your job, but then when you leave, you're done for the day. Like you don't have homework.
Yeah, I exactly, right? Like 100, you said it better than I did. Like when you're at work, yes, you 100% do your job. Yeah, right? Like you 100% do the things you're supposed to do. You don't 33% do the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
100%, and then you give 33% of yourself to that
hmm
place.
hmm
But you 100% do all the things you're supposed to do, you know?
Absolutely. And I think it's that important distinction because I think with imposter syndrome, which we've also talked about, is we feel like we have to do everything to be enough. But you can do exactly what you're supposed to do in your job or at school and still have time for yourself, and that is enough. And that's actually
Yeah.
preferred.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up imposter syndrome because, like, man, it's real. You're
hmm
not gonna avoid it. People might say, like, after graduation or like when they get a new job, they're like, oh, like imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not gonna be affected by that. No, you're most likely going to. I know I was. And I know like the week, vulnerable, share again, like the week after I graduated grad school was like that in between point between job and like just graduating. At first you get like a euphoria, right? Like, oh, I just did this big thing. And then you go to not doing anything. And then you realize how much of your accomplishments and your success was tied to maybe grad school or maybe staying busy or because I wanted as much as I wanted to take that time off between getting my job started in grad school to just relax, right? But that was really hard for me to do because I tied a lot of my self-worth and a lot of my being to the work I did. And I tied a lot of that to the things I was a part of and all my accomplishments, my successes, and things like that. And I think that's like the etiology, we're talking dietetics talk here. That's the etiology of imposter syndrome, right? Is you expect yourself to do XYZ because you've done XYZ in the past, or you have these expectations of you that you've done in the past. So now when you're at your job or something, or, and you're like, man, I really should know better because of XYZ, like I feel like we put a lot of I guess like a lot of pressure on ourselves to do well. If we, that's the root of imposter syndrome, is putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to do the best job we can because, at the end of the day, I feel like the majority of dietitians are perfectionists. And I'm actually learning how not to be a perfectionist right now. So that's an interesting journey. But I think the one thing that's helped me the most, and I also want to share this too, is like for imposter syndrome. Um, I will, it's good to acknowledge the things that you've done, up to this point in your life. So it's good to like create a list of the things you do. Like, for example, I did this just the other day. So like you write on a piece of paper, like all your accomplishments up to this date that you're really proud of, right? That you really hold not in your heart because that gets you in trouble sometimes if you try to correlate those accomplishments with yourself and your self-worth. But like it's good to like say like, oh, ACEND board, RD, graduated grad school. It's good to make those lists and to appreciate what you've accomplished. But when it starts getting tied to your self-worth, that's when you need to like crumble up that piece of paper and just throw it straight in the trash. And then you start a new list of the things that you really love about yourself. And that's what I literally did this the other day. Everything I'm saying I literally have done in the past week. So it's like you write and then you start a new list. You're like, okay, what am I without those things? I just threw all those things in the trash. Now what is left? And then and don't just write a few things. Write like a whole list. Make that list like triple as long as the list that you made previously and you threw in the trash, right? So that's something that's really helped me with imposter syndrome is just like knowing that I am these things. I've accomplished these things, but the two of those are not related. Some of the things that I am have helped me accomplish the things that I've accomplished, right? But my worth in that list of accomplishments are not related. And they shouldn't influence how I should be doing at my job or at school or anything like that. Because I'm still learning a lot in my new job. I've only been working for 3 months. So like so imposter syndrome has definitely been the thing that like I'm trying to get over the hump and tackle. And that's what I found out is that I let too much of what my past experience and my accomplishments and successes influence like how I perform at my job. And no, like that's just they're not related
Mhm.
whatsoever.
Yeah, and like detaching your identity from your accomplishments. Like you are a person outside of the grades that you have, the jobs that you've had, the positions that you've held, and that you're still worthy of rest and you're worthy of taking these breathers without, having to completely work yourself ridden. Because everyone needs that rest for sure.
Yeah, and when you think about back to like what you do and what you accomplish in your work or whatever is like what we said earlier is like only about 33% of your day, and then the rest of it is you and sleep.
Mhm.
Like most of it is you. So you need to recognize who you are because that's who you are the most. That's who you are 100% of the day, but that's the mode that you're in. You're in your personal life for 66% of your day. So get familiar with how you are as a person because you're in that mode theoretically longer than you should be in any other mode,
Mhm.
you know? And I always thought it's interesting where people on like their Instagram bios are like, I know LinkedIn's about professional connect networking and things like that, but a lot of people on like Instagram bios or Facebook bios will list basically accomplishments. I graduated from college this year. I'm an RDN, I'm this and that. And like I think that's where some of it stems from too. Is like if we put less focus on our biography being our list of accomplishments and more on like who we are and what we stand for, I feel like that would help a lot too.
That is such a great comment that I think it just ties so many things together where social media, I think, also is a huge impact as to why people feel like they're not doing enough and or that they're not being enough in school or like, oh, I need to do all these things because I see all these people traveling, doing all these internships, going and meeting all these people. Why am I not doing that? Well,
Mhm.
it's also like there's a person behind that, and they could be stressed, burnt out, have money that you don't have people that they know that they just, again, like lucked out with opportunity to get access to those things. And I think leaning into your individual person that you are and leveraging your strengths, your accomplishments to help put you in the next direction that you want to go. And I think, yeah, separating yourself from your Instagram bio into your actual biography. Like instead of just seeing the Instagram bio of these are all things you've done, what is your personal biography? Like who are you in the story that you want to tell with your life and how that's not just the accomplishments, it's what your values are, what's important to you, and that 66% that you do outside of that 33%. So that's a great point.
Yeah, like I don't really care. Like I want to know who you are as a person and I want to know what you stand for and I want to know what your hobbies are.
Mhm.
I couldn't care less what you did, like because I don't because, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all people.
Mhm.
So I kind of want to know more about you, not more about what you've done. What you've done is cool and interesting, right? But like, yeah, I want to know what who you are.
Mhm.
So that's my take on imposter syndrome and just like social media in general.
Yeah, no, and I think those are great, just like tidbits of advice and things to end on when it comes to finding ways to balance that with knowing when you're doing enough, knowing if you are enough, is just ultimately knowing that you are enough. Because at the end of the day, we are all people and all people are enough. It
Mhm.
is are you doing things that are igniting your passions? Are you doing things that help get you up out of bed? Are you doing things that don't consume your life, but they're just a positive addition to your life or your professional career? And the balance is of like, you're going to have those hard points where you do have to work hard and you do have to make sacrifices, but it's all for the greater good in that it's not oh, once I get to this destination, then I'm done. It's
Mhm.
all been really great pieces of advice about enjoying the journey and not trying to make your way somewhere. Um, and so the last thing that, to like end on and to kind of cap this out, because we've really done a wonderful job walking through all the things that you've learned, your unique journey towards becoming a dietitian, and really like giving people grace during the process. But now that you're over that hump, you passed your RD exam and you're working in long-term care, what is your current perspective? Like, what steps are you taking now that you are a dietitian, just so that people listening in can see what that lens is to end on?
Yeah, I mean, I love working in long-term care. I mean, I feel like I'm where I need to be. Because I'm a long-term relationship person. I love making long-term relationships with the residents, their families. And also I have a lot of fun at my job. And my job offers a lot of flexibility. Um, you know, as you get, I feel like I'm already kind of starting to learn this. It could be just majorly a long-term care thing, but especially in long-term care, it's more about the relationship piece so the residents trust you. And then it's also about building connections with your healthcare team also. I think what distinguishes a dietitian from maybe like good to great is like realizing that sometimes and most of the time, especially in long-term care, it's sometimes about the food, but what comes before the food is the relationship building piece. And so you can build rapport because there's a lot of rapport building in long-term care. It literally is long-term care. So you have to prioritize first building relationships and having people trust you and knowing that they can rely on you and having residents want to speak with you and be a positive light in their day. I think I learned that early on, and I kind of learned that in my long-term care rotation. Like it's as a dietitian, it's more about the relationships. Yes, what we do is food, but it's it's not about the food sometimes. It is about that more emotional and like relationship building piece. So that's the one thing I'm learning right now in my new job. And for future, for places where I want to arrive, not really arrive, but places where I'm working towards is I eventually want to go back to school, get my PhD and like hopefully teach, go back to the education part. The thing that got me here. I kind of want to be a mentor. Like I said, I'm very passionate about mentoring. And I feel like it'd be a nice full circle thing, for me to return to that, later down the line. Right now, like that's always my end goal is to return to that place. But I feel like right now, I view that's the thing I'm always thinking about. So right now I'm kind of in that space where I'm just chilling out for right now and getting a really good experience in a field I really enjoy and enjoying it with the long-term goal in mind, way down the road that that's where I'll be. So I'm viewing even my more stagnant phases, I'm just trying to get a really good start right now. So that's what I'm focused on, but that's my long-term goal is to go back to education and go back to that mentoring and teaching part. And that's where I
Absolutely.
started, yeah.
And I was just going to say, yeah, that exactly where what goes around comes around. And I think it's great how you also spoke to, while yes, this seems like a slower period, it's intentionality. And also having that larger goal towards becoming an educator, pursuing your PhD, that sounds super daunting. And you have the confidence and the assurance that that is going to happen, but in its own time. And with what we talked about with knowing how to take breaks, knowing how to balance, not always be go, 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 knowing what the purpose of your time in the present is, I think that makes you appreciate it more and to get more out of it, especially when you still have those goals in mind to get to, because you have that comfort of I am working towards something, but it gives you that same type of comfort in the so that means I can like chill because you're getting other experiences from it. You have other experiences waiting to come, but that time will come. It's just not now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, like 20 years from now, and you like, there's going to be so much happening. And like we were saying earlier, like the journey's best literally, I think, unplanned.
Hmm.
So I'm just, do what comes and like kind of have a benchmark in mind, or like maybe having goals in mind is nice and everything. But I really don't know when that opportunity or when I'm gonna move forward, and that's kind of fun. Yeah, that's the exciting part. So just kind of having it kind of like very roughly planned out, but then not the details and like not making myself go into tunnel vision, I think is important too.
Absolutely. And it's kind of challenging that like type A perfectionism personality that a lot of dietetic students have. And the best way that I've been able to see it, and this ties so nicely to your experience with, most of your pivotal moments being the unexpected, is it's great to have a goal to work towards because it's like walking down a trail. You want to have an end in sight because that's what gets you to start walking. However, you may start encountering different offshoots of the trail that you wouldn't have known existed had you not start taking that first step. But a good way to get that first step is to have a direction to go. And so seeing those goals more so as a direction rather than a finite, I'm gonna land here. And because I'm not a retired perfectionist, but grad school's definitely shaken me up a lot as far as what things to let go and what things to focus on. Um, but yeah, I think you saying that is just so true in the sense of preserving your mental health while still being able to achieve the things that you want to achieve. So,
Yeah. But yeah, grad school is the thing that made me work towards being a retired perfectionist. I feel like that's a pivotal moment for a lot of people because of that. Because you have to just come to the conclusion that, perfectionism, it's funny how we want perfectionism, but at the same time knowing it, it doesn't exist.
mhm.
So why do we work towards it? That's how I view it now. I'm like, I did my best, you know.
And your best is enough.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
perfectionism doesn't exist. We know this. Everyone says it. And we all know it to be true when you just say it out loud. But it's when we actually stop trying to like go for it is when we actually have the most growth, in my opinion. I feel like being released from perfectionism actually is where your growth starts to accelerate.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great like call to action for people listening in and like a great note to end on where it's challenge your perfectionism, see where you are acting like very like detail oriented in a detrimental way because there are times where having more detail is important in like your work, your
Mhm.
job, things like that. But in the broader picture of things and what you're doing, where is it important and where can you let go so that you can properly grow? So, yeah, Kaitlyn, thank you so much for spending the time to just share your journey, all of the great advice that you've learned along the way, what you're currently learning, and just I know for a fact people listening in will get at least something from all the wonderful advice that we discussed. But any last things that you want to end on or
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been a blast. I was really excited about being on today. I'm glad we got connected and we were able to make this happen. Um, yeah, that's the main reason I did this. It's just so that RD2B students, new working professionals can realize that, you know, we're all the same. We all struggle with the same things. So I think that maybe hearing it from someone that has lived it and experienced it will help in some way because that's my main goal is to just help other people understand that it's something we all go through. And listening to me, maybe, and where I am, people can say, oh, like, yeah, maybe hearing I'm not, this outgoing extroverted person, or maybe like, oh, like I do make a lot of mistakes. I'm still learning. Helps, I feel, will help a lot of people. So that's why I wanted to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. And giving people that grace and permission to not be perfect. So, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. And hopefully, this is a great just reminder that everyone's enough and that everyone will be successful dietitians. And it's not the destination, it's the journey. But yeah, thank you so much again.
Yeah.